American standard, from the American standard of the American Institute for Certified Professional Accountants. Let's see here, from the SOC 2 report here, we can say that what's the meaning of SOC 2 report? SOC 2 or SOC report here stand for System and Organization Controls. System and Organization Control, this is a report you will make sure that your service provider, that you will use to make sure that your service provider is due care, due diligence for your data, for your trusted security services. Here, usually we are using this report here to audit our service providers, to make sure that our service providers here are taking care of your data, are installing and maintaining the enough controls to complete the data and completing the data and completing the enough security controls, and everything is in place to due care and to achieve your data here inside your compliance. At the end of the day, we can say that the SOC 2 report here, it is very important or extremely important for any organization that that outsource its data to another service provider. We can say here that if you outsourced your data to another service provider, you have to use this SOC 2 report. We can say also that to control the service providers, you must mention this in your contract. If you didn't mention in your contract that you have the right to audit this service provider, you will not be able to perform the audit here, because what is not documented is not exist, as we know, and what is not exist in the contract, it will not take place after going to the operation. It makes sense. So we can find many organizations that decide to outsource, their some services, for example, IT service, information security service, call center service, data center service, XYZ services here. We need to make sure that this data is secure. Does this make sense? We can find here this SOC 2 report is required in many contracts as well. Yeah, if you saw before in any contract a condition to perform an audit that is performed by external or a third party, that will cover here 6 to 12 months. Usually it's 12 months. Fine. So in this 12 months, it will cover here this is the covered period here during the audit here. So I will make sure and I will assure and I will audit if the controls was working in an effective way, if the controls are achieving its objectives. Fine. Is the controls here working in an efficient way and cost effective? Yes or no? If there is any finding here, which is, I mean, there is a negative approach. Finding here, which is mean I can see I missed the control or I missed the control objectives. This is the audited standard. If I can see here, miss the control, there is some controls are missed. Fine. So I can say that at the end of the day, we here we have a finding, or we have an observation. Based on what you will say something like that, Ahmed, I will say something like that based on the standards, the audit standards that I am using. The SOC report here, it was based on SAS 70. This SAS 70 was published here on published here, fine, before the SSAE 16 here. Starting the SSAE 16 here that it's got published in April 2010, fine, it was a replacement of the SAS standard. What's the meaning of SAS standard? SAS standard here, it's audit standard. Like in ISO, we have 19011 as an audit standard for the ISO compliance. The SSAE 16 standard here, fine, this is stand for Statement of Standards for Attestation. How you can make attestation, how you can test the evidence and make sure that this evidence is working well and is in place, efficient, cost effective, and so on. Why we need this type of standards? To be able to audit our service providers that provide for us the services, and we need to assure that everything is working in place and working well. So starting from April 2016 here, we got the new standard here, the SSAE 18 standard, and it was effective here starting from 1st of May 2017. That is made a replacement for all other standards. Based on this standard here, I will audit the following. We have 3 types of SOC. SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3. SOC 1 here, it is a financial reporting service. It's a financial reporting service. I am auditing here the internal control that is relevant to the audit here of the service on the client services, on the client financial services. SOC 2, this is the most popular because this one is a security report. Yes, it is an information security report that is audit here the trust service criteria. Trust service criteria, as we know, it's 5 things. 5 things. 3, CIA, security, privacy. CIA, it's the basics of cybersecurity. If you ask me, Ahmed, what is your job? I am working CIA. I'm working CIA here, which is mean that I am due care for the CIA. Confidentiality, integrity, availability. Confidentiality of the information, the integrity that the data is valid, nobody modified it with unauthorized modification, and availability, the data is available for the authorized users when they need this data. So we here achieving mainly CIA behind security and privacy. The privacy of the data is very important. Nowadays, we have, for example, in Egypt, we have the data protection regulation, new data protection regulation that it's enforced nowadays to force all the organizations to protect the privacy, to protect the data that they have, to protect the client's data. It is not allowed here to do less care for the data while you have this data here, fine, on your environment, inside your environment, fine, for the data subjects. In addition to the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, that is designed to protect all the European data, European citizens, fine, data for all the companies that are resident in the EU or outside the EU. So here we can say that being compliant with a specific standard here will enforce you also to help you and enforce your service provider to due care for your data. But remember here, all of these audits will not take place. Yes, all of these types of audit will not take place unless it was mentioned in the contract between you and your service provider. We have another type of audit, SOC 3. The SOC 3 here, it stands for, it's a managerial one. It is a summary. So for a person like me, I can do the SOC 2, SOC 3 because I can do it on the security controls. I can evaluate it, and I can provide another one for the upper management, SOC 3. Actually, we can make a comparison here, example of use. When I need this SOC 1, when you outsource your payroll service, stock management, any company that provides such services here, we can say that this company here need to be audited by SOC 1. SOC 2 here, also when you outsource, for example here, when you outsource a service for cloud service provider, software development, data management, outsourced IT. If you are a service provider, it is maybe will help you too much to open a new market, to find more customers, to be compliant with the SOC 2 here. Fine, if you decide to do it on yourself, to do it from yourself. Now, you helped your business in this way to open a new market, be compliant, fine, with some standards here like the SOX compliance. Any American company here that will think to outsource a service for you will ask you to do it, to do this one. Maybe they select you because you already performed this audit and you are ready with the audit already. So you are ready with the audit in hand. So this will help you too much. So we have two types of the audit. You can make it on type 1 or type 2. Type 1 here, the type 1 report refers to a snapshot of a specific time. But type 2, this report that covers the efficiency of the control or measures the efficiency of the controls for across a period of time, from 6 to 12 months. From 6 to 12 months here. So you can find here that there is many persons are performing this report to cover 1 year and renew it a year after year. So you have a consultant party here. You have a need here to have an external auditor here. You can establish a contract with an auditor here to audit you on yearly basis, because any violation, any absence for this audit here maybe will be reflected on your relationship with your customers. Maybe it be reflected on your reputation or something like that. So this is some advices for you as a service provider. If you are a client and you will decide to outsource your service for a service provider, please try to mention these types of audit here. Please try to mention here, fine, it's more than enough to write in the contract, fine, the company here has the right to audit the service provider, fine, or perform the audit by a third party, fine, to assure the service, the trust security, the trust service criteria. We can see here the trust service criteria. Here is the 5 items: the security, availability, processing, integrity, confidentiality, and the privacy. To audit these 5 security services here, fine, for a period of 12 months or every 12 months. So this will be the type 2. Let's go to the project itself and how it be done. Actually, before start, we have to make scoping for the audit. Scoping for the audit, fine, and the scoping here to determine the scope of the audit. By the way, maybe you perform this for one of your clients only. You're working as a service provider and you are performing this for one of your clients only. You are not making this for all of your clients, just one client. Just one American client, just one Danish client, Dutch client, from wherever this client, maybe they ask you for this audit. Maybe for United Arab Emirates, and I see it nowadays in the Arabic Gulf. So you have to make this scoping here. Then you have to make here, after the kickoff meeting and so on, you will collect the samples. Collect the samples here. This is very important and extremely important to make sure that this sample, this evidence here, achieve the controls objectives. Usually in this standard here, we collect the evidence on 2 levels. First level, then after making some sample analysis, we ask the auditee to provide a second level of evidence. Why? Because this is a very deep audit. For example, when I collect here some data, fine, about the control efficiency and about the control effectiveness, so I will try to evaluate if this process it's implemented, it's clear, described, communicated for everybody. But if I can see now some users didn't adhere for this process by a way or another, or their termination process, or their for example here hiring process or software acquisition process didn't take place, so I will write observation. The finding here, which is mean absence of a control. Observation here, which is mean it is the control is exist, but I have some observation because I have had some doubt with the control standard, with the control standard. I am afraid that the control here is not working well. I am afraid here that this control is not taking place. I am afraid here that this control is not efficient. And after a while, it will not be effective. So this will be the second level of samples. You will need to assure the controls. You have to draft the report to discuss with the upper management, with the client, with the auditee. Fine, because maybe something went wrong during the audit, and you have to make sure that it's working well and so on. Then you have to deliver the final report. Very important thing here to mention regarding the report. There is nothing here it name that I passed the report or I failed to pass the report. Nothing it name that I failed or passed, compliant or not compliant. It is not a compliance report. It is just audit report to evaluate the controls and control objectives. Who said that this is the appropriate control? The auditee, the service provider. Service provider said that I am performing pen test every 6 months. So show me the latest report. Show me the changes, the request for changes that you made to perform this one, to perform and to close the gaps, to close the findings of this one. Show me some samples here of some changes that caused an incident. I have to see, I have to understand. It must be clear for me. So at the end of the day, I can say that the report here, it can have some observation, some findings, some area of improvement, but there is nothing it names that you passed the report or you didn't pass the report. After the report, you can take some action items, take some make action tracker to track everything and to make sure that everything is working well, is in place, and so on. Fine. Simply, the SOC 2 report here, fine, it will be very useful. Very useful. I got a question here that I have to give some recommendation here. My recommendation here, I will give the recommendation in 2 levels. Level number 1 for the service providers themselves, that they will be audited by the SOC 2 report. My advice for you, if you are outsourcing some of your services, you have to have this report in hands. When you go to a tender or something like this report will be one of the papers, one of the documents that will support your technical offer. Because the clients here will evaluate, they understand what is the value of somebody is audited by a third party. So you have to do it on a yearly basis. So it will be something very useful for you. Also, for the service providers, this will help you to enhance your controls. Having external eyes from outside, this is usually help you to have some mistakes you will never be able to get, you will never be able to discover during your maybe by internal audit and so on, during your implementation for new technologies and so on. Maybe you need some opinions from outside, somebody to observe minor issues, major issues that you are making inside your infrastructure. This is the benefit. This is the benefit of getting somebody from outside to make the audit well. In addition to that, also we have here a very good opportunity to be one of the unique service providers that are already achieving this one. For this will help your business. My advice is here, and my recommendation for for any company that will outsource one of the previous services that we will discuss, you must mention in your contract that the service provider has to provide you, that this service provider here has to provide you with something like that, with a report like that, with official SOC 2 report, SOC 1 report as per the service that you will outsource. Second advice, never ever sign a contract without mentioning your right to audit. Third advice here, before writing your contract, we recommend here to get the consultancy of an expert that can show you what is okay in this contract, what is not okay in this contract. It's extremely important, because after writing the contract here, it will be over. It will be a point of no return. Yes, because we agreed any change in the contract will be change in the scope, maybe cost you more money. Yeah. Also, it must be very clear. The cost of the audit here, it will be on your side or on the service provider. Sorry. Fine. It will be on your side or the service provider side. If it will be on your side, fine. Let's see. Fine. Let's see. It will cost how much it will cost, and you will pay. If it was on the audit of the service provider side, fine, it must be mentioned in the contract from beginning here, fine. So it will be part of the pricing to avoid here any issue after having the contract in place and after start to deliver the service. Actually, this was just a small presentation about the value of the SOC 2 report and how to control your service provider here. Fine. I hope you enjoyed the session. Fine. Thank you very much, and this is the time for questions if you have any. Thank you. I can receive your questions on the application, Holger. Can you explain the importance of third-party risk management for cloud service provider? Yes, if I understand your question well, fine. The importance here of third-party risk management for cloud service provider here, fine. Assuming if I understand your question well, that you are the cloud service provider, fine, and you are performing risk management. This is something mandatory for you as a cloud service provider. This is something, it's a part of the ISO 27201. It's a part of, there is a dedicated ISO, of course, for risk management. If you mean with your question here, the importance of third-party risk management, if you mean that you are a client and you will outsource your service for a cloud service provider, fine. Before outsource the service, you have to perform risk assessment for this third party, fine? Yes, you have to do it. Why? What is the importance of that? Because this outsourcing, it was a decision based on risk treatment. You understand? Because in risk management, we have here, after we perform the risk assessment, we have to trade the risk. What's the meaning of trading the risk? Trade the risk, which means that we will accept the risk. We have accepted the risk, avoid the risk, mitigate the risk, transfer the risk. Accept the risk by saying, oh, it's okay. It's okay. I will not outsource. I have here some services running in my environment that go up and down sometimes. It's okay with me. Avoid the risk by not delivering this service at all. Mitigate the risk by install, for example, DOS protection or something like this infrastructure to mitigate the attacks. Transfer the risk. There are two forms of transfer: insurance or outsource. So maybe here your movement here for cloud computing, it is a mitigation of risk. So let's return to the question here. Fine. Assuming here the importance of performing risk assessment before go to third party. Yes, this control, fine, can lead here to another type of risks for me. So maybe the risk here is that the data now lose control of data. Maybe the cloud service provider is operating in a different area. Fine. So your data will adhere for another regulations. Fine. Maybe the data will be stored outside of your country, and this is prevented by your local laws, like United Arab Emirates. They are preventing storing of data outside the Emirates there. So at the end of the day, you have to make something like that. For example, if you are working in Australia and you decide here to outsource your data here, you decide to outsource by move to cloud service provider that's working in Malaysia or something like that. This is impossible to be happened. Why? Because this data center, this cloud service provider is operating in Malaysia. Fine. So at the end of the day, the data will be stored in Malaysia, which is mean here you are violating the rules, the laws inside Australia and New Zealand that prevent to store the data outside the boundaries. So this is a risk, maybe lead you for a lot of penalties and so on. So risk is a tool in your hand. You have to do it right and to keep in mind. So I hope that I answered this question. Thank you for your question. Second question here, what is the process or procedure of evaluating my service provider annually? Again, the most simple way is to have some agreed on controls and perform this audit. And perform this audit here. Yeah, this audit is very important here. This audit is extremely important. So this is the most simple way. Fine. I remember that I wrote here a publication. Fine. And I published. I remember that I published here on my LinkedIn account. Fine. About the SOC 2 report and the value of having this SOC 2 report. This is the process or procedure. This is how to evaluate them. Thank you for your question. I hope I answered you also well. Fine. What do you think to risk assessment of service provider before dealing with? Of course, you have to do it. We call this in the audit concept second party audit. Second party here, this is the client audit or potential client audit. Don't outsource your service here before performing an audit on your cloud service provider. Make sure that control is taking place. Make sure that they are operating well. Make sure that they will not try and catch errors with you. That they are operating well, that they are on a mature level. For example, in capability maturity level models here, and assuming that you have, for example, and they are on level number 2 or number 3. Fine, so this will be something more than perfect. More than perfect here. And no need to be on level number 4 or level number 5. This is very high levels, to be honest. But it doesn't make sense when I measure them again as the capability maturity model. I cannot find them on any level. They are on level 0. You understand me? You understand me? You agree with me? So at the end of the day, I can say that that is extremely important to perform this risk assessment before start to choose them as a service provider or assign some work for them. So I hope that I answered your questions. Actually, I got these 3 questions. Any other questions there? Any other questions? All is good? All is clear? Fine. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable time, and I hope to see you in another sessions in Arab Security Conference. Thank you. Bye bye. See you.